Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. My name is Dini Zairin and my group members are Muhammad Taufik, Aihanur Alfahani, Nur Akilah, Muhammad Hazim and Nurul Ashikin. We are from Section 9 Group B. Today, we are going to present about our documentary outline with our topic Urban Poverty in Malaysia. The main objectives for our documentary video is first, to educate people about urban poverty in Malaysia, especially to the youth. Next, our video is hoped to raise awareness about the importance of higher education and skills to avoid urban poverty. Last but not least, is to understand the main factors and the solutions for urban poverty. Moving on to the next slide, as for our introduction part, there will be some subtopics included. One of it is, what is urban poverty? In simple words, urban poverty is a poverty that happens in urban areas. For example, in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur and Shah Alam. These people are living in a state of poor even though they live in a rich area. However, urban poverty are usually defined in two ways. First, as an absolute standard based on a minimum amount of income needed to sustain a healthy and minimally comfortable life. Second, as a relative standard that is set based on average the standard of living in a nation. Next, how to measure urban poverty. When it comes to measuring poverty levels in Malaysia, the government currently uses two methods: the Poverty Line Income, PLI, and the Multidimensional Poverty Index, MPI. The PLI is calculated based on household incomes, whereas the MPI is calculated using the Index of Multidimensional Poverty. That's all from me. Thank you.
Which SDG is related to poverty? Goal number 1. No poverty means to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. This goal calls for an end to poverty in all its manifestations by 2030. It also aims to ensure social protection for the poor and vulnerable, increase access to basic services, and support people harmed by climate-related extreme events and other economic, social, and environmental shock and disaster. Ending poverty is one of 17 global goals that make up the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
We also include the characteristics of urban poverty in our introduction, such as lack or absence of political power among residents, when the locals do not have any capability to protect their ownership rights. Secondly, because of inadequate social security system, as well as we all know, that social security is important for a better life. Next, the inadequate rule of law in the country is one of the characteristics of urban poverty.
There are a few groups that can be categorized as urban vulnerable, such as handicapped, single parent, youth, elderly, people with low and moderate income, whose monthly income is on average Malaysian ringgit 2,334, people with low educational level and engage in low skill and less productive sector, orang asli, minority Sabah and Sarawak, and estate workers.
Okay, what is the difference between rural and urban poverty? First of all, the meaning of rural poverty is the resident of non-urban area or non-urban cluster who earn below the income threshold. For urban poverty, the meaning of urban poverty is the resident of urbanized area or urban cluster who earn below the income threshold. General sources expect for rural poverty, recent economic downturn related to the Great Renaissance, while urban poverty is when the migrations during the Industrial Revolutions. The primary causes for rural poverty is unemployment, lack of health care, income inequality, while for urban poverty is lack of education, opportunity, unemployment, prejudice, and also discrimination.
Our main point includes the causes of urban poverty. For example, lack of employment, because job seekers are growing at a faster pace than the number of available jobs. Secondly, volatile and very low incomes. And the next is low level of education or skills and lack of basic facilities. Basic facilities is the basic standard of changes required and appropriate to allow people to use public land safely.
Income disparity urban area in Malaysia. It happened due to the government failure to recognize relative poverty as a social problem. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, it has become a steep decline in absolute poverty, where the government neglected that the part that there has been a sharp increase in the income between the rich and the poor. The effect of this inequality in income can hurt the economy in the long run by creating civil and social tension, discontentment, distrust, and can undermine the political system and create instability in the economy as well as in the society. For instance, in the school education, children in the lower segment of the socio-economic distribution perform disproportionately poor in the academic compared to the children who come from well-off background. Next, we move to, does urbanization affect poverty? A massive growth in urban population will causes a variety of issues for the municipal government, particularly in terms of delivering service and utilities, generating employment opportunities, and providing housing for cities dwellers. It will lead to escalating economic and social costs, such as rent, transportation, land, jobs, and others. It also contribute to signify the problem such as inadequate amenities and shortage of housing, which deteriorate the living standard of the urban population.
The effects of urban poverty is escalate in social crime. In today's world, money is very important for humans to survive because money is used to buy basic needs. In order to receive money, a person has to work for it. However, there is a situation where a person is in short of money. He or she might be desperate and act recklessly by stealing or robbing someone else's property as an alternative way to receive money. Next is urban diseconomies. Living in a city or urban areas has its own disadvantages, where in this case, higher living costs. Normal living expenses such as rent and utilities tend to be higher in urban areas compared to in rural areas. And there might be additional living expenses such as parking permits and laundry that can hardly be found in rural areas. Next is increase the burden of bearing the high living costs. The increase in the prices of some essential items such as food, housing, and healthcare is making it difficult for low and middle income groups of bearing their high living costs, especially those with big numbers of families.
Okay, now let's move on to urban migration. What is urban migration? Urban migration is a process of people moving from rural to cities. Employment opportunities in rural areas has created a situation of socio-economic compulsion. This pattern is most discernible in the 10 to 25 age of group. It reflects to a certain extent the lack of sufficient educational and or advanced skill training in rural areas. It can also be the result of rising educational consciousness. Solution for urban poverty. There are 5 solutions. The first one is re-examine the needs of urban poor. The government should control urban transportation costs to ensure cheaper costs for the urban poor. Improving interagency cooperation. Suggestion from Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah that Pemandu and KRA for education, crime, cost of living are rationalized. Change poverty indicators. Malaysia should not use the same indicators used by poorest nation to determine poverty. Improve public amenities. Much more needs to be done to improve the management of shared facilities. Improve job and employment activities. Employees often turn to migrant workers due to costs, and there must be protection of jobs for locals. References. This is the list of main resources that we will use for the documentary video. Time contribution. Every subtopic will contain 1.5 minutes of duration in the documentary video. Group members' contribution. Every group members will take 2 subtopics to be delivered in the documentary video. That's all from us. Group B, Section 9. Thank you.